Hey guys, we finally made it to exam one. We haven't had any major grades up until this point. But we have some coming up right after the exam. But this exam is going to be 50 questions, multiple choice. There will be fill in the blank with multiple choice answers, but no essays. And it's going to open up. It'll be open the entire week that you guys have for your online week. And so it'll close Sunday at 11:59 p.m. And once you open the exam, you have to complete it. So if you start it, just make sure that you don't exit out or close the window or say complete and then try to go back because it will not let you back in the exam. However, if you run into any emergencies, you guys have my email address and you have my cell phone number. So what I would suggest doing is send me an email and then follow up with a text message right away, just letting me know if you have an emergency, and I will address it as soon as I see your message. All right, let's get started with the exam review. Chapter 1. So, entrepreneurs serve several functions, and we talked about some of the things that they do. They employ other individuals, they account for a large part of the country's GDP, but essentially they earn money for themselves by taking risks. Some examples would be Sam Walton. He started Walmart as only one single store. Michael Dell is another example. He was building computers out of his dorm in the University of Texas, and that later became Dell Inc. So, an entrepreneur is someone who risks time and money to start and manage a business. All right, can you make stakeholders happy all the time? Can you make your family happy all the time? The answer is, of course, no. Um, Often the needs of firms' stakeholders will conflict. For example, paying employees more may cut into stockholders' profits. Balancing such demands is a major role of business managers. When I showed you this chart, we talked about the difference between macroeconomics and microeconomics. Microeconomics focuses on a single vertical. It deals with revenue, costs, and profit within that vertical. Macroeconomics deals with the country or the economy as a whole. And here we're talking about GDP, the unemployment rate, and inflation. Make sure that you're able to differentiate between macro and microeconomics and understand what the key formula indicators are for each. If you did not watch the Invisible Hand video, which is linked here, when we went through chapter one, it would be helpful for you to go back through it as you're studying for the exam. You can stop at about minute 7, but the first couple of minutes help give you a very grounded understanding of how the invisible hand works. So, in addition to watching the video, just remember what Adam Smith, the father of economics, suggested needed to be present in order for the invisible hand theory to work. For example, people believed that if they worked hard, they would be rewarded. And then as they worked to better themselves, they in turn provided benefit to society as a whole. Make sure you can identify the definition of gross domestic product. So this is the total value of goods and services produced in a country in a given year. Even if it is a multinational corporation or is headquartered in a different country, as long as the goods being produced in that country are within its borders, then it will contribute to that country's GDP. An increase in gross domestic product is a good thing because that means the country is generating more dollars from what it's producing. Unemployment rate. Similarly, make sure that you're able to identify the unemployment rate and what qualifies as good or bad as far as the rate is concerned. So, if we have high unemployment, that means that many people are out of work and looking for jobs that are in the job market. If the unemployment rate is low, then the economy is doing better as a whole. We also just briefly discussed inflation. Inflation is the general rise in prices of goods and services over time. This ties into the time value of money, saying that a dollar today is worth more than a dollar tomorrow, one of those reasons being inflation. All right, let's dive into chapter 2. Make sure that you are able to understand and discuss why we trade with other nations, who benefits as a result, and what the arguments against trading are. So, no nation can produce all of the products its people want and need. Countries with abundant natural resources benefit from trading those and receiving other resources that the country cannot produce as effectively and efficiently as those countries. Free trade is a hotly debated subject. Make sure that you understand why. Revisiting figure 2.4, we talked about different strategies for a national company to reach international markets. The least control, commitment, and risk, which also ties with the lowest amount of profit potential, is indicative of licensing. Licensing allows you to allow another company to operate within its borders, using your namesake or your branding um, for a royalty fee. The most um, the most cost intensive, riskiest, and can also provide the most profit would be foreign direct investment. Here you purchase land, you purchase buildings, and you have a long-term presence manufacturing or producing or having services in the foreign country. When we talk about the dollar, or the exchange rate, as far as the dollar domestically versus foreign goods, when we say the dollar is up, that means that it's a bargain for U.S. consumers to come to our country and exchange their dollar for ours. Uh, all right, chapter 3. Chapter 3 was about ethics. We discussed that just because something is legal doesn't necessarily make it ethical. And if it's ethical, it may not necessarily be legal. So watch out for absolutes on your exam. Make sure you know the difference between compliance-based ethics codes and integrity-based ethics. Compliance-based ethics is when there is a law and that law is being enforced in order to prevent people from doing unethical behavior. Integrity-based ethics appeals to one's values and helps them make a decision that is morally sound. One example would be if I tell my toddler that she should not eat a cookie or I will spank her, then I am using compliance-based ethics to say that if she commits something, um, if she eats the cookie, then she will have a repercussion and there for her wrongdoing. If I say, you are not going to eat more than one, you're not going to eat the cookie because you're a good person and you're going to save that cookie for your sister, then I'm appealing to integrity-based ethics, saying that, not imposing um, a consequence, but rather appealing to her nature and her values. All right, discussing corporate social responsibility. So when we talk about corporate responsibility, we're discussing the company's commitment to, um, you know, putting back what it takes out. So it's its obligation to protect the community and the environment in general. When we're talking about corporate social initiatives, goes one step further. So we're going above and beyond to do something to leave the earth better than we got it. So an example of that corporate social initiative would be Tom's Shoes, how they created a second pair of shoes for someone in an emerging economy or in an impoverished economy, whenever a pair of Tom's shoes was purchased. Corporate social responsibility, as a baseline, would be simply providing a product that is high quality, that is something the consumer is interested in and can appreciate value in. I also wanted to mention on the exam, if you are thinking the answer is corporate social responsibility just responsibility, might be the indicator on that exam. All right, chapter 14. We talked about steps in the accounting cycle. Make sure that you thoroughly understand each step in the accounting cycle and who owns it from a traditional bookkeeper accountant standpoint. So, for example, the bookkeeper would take the source documents and record the transactions into journals. The next step would be for the accountant to post the journal entries to the ledger, and so on. We talked about the fundamental accounting equation. Make sure that you know the fundamental accounting equation, what the letters are, and what they mean. This is the basis for the balance sheet. Okay, when talking about the income statement, resources or revenue left over or depleted are referred to as net income or net loss. The income statement shows the firm's profit after costs, expense, and taxes. Um, Make sure that you understand the simple income statement on the right. Understand what components are subtracted from revenue initially to create gross profit. Beyond that, subtracting operating expenses and taxes then bring net income or net loss. For the statement of cash flows, we have cash flows during the period for different types of activities, cash in, cash out. When we have cash flows as a receipt, that means that we have money coming into the company, which is a net positive. When we have cash flows being dispersed, this is shown as a negative number and is subtracted from our overall balance. Be able to identify and differentiate between the different accounting disciplines. What type of organization does a private accountant work for? How does that differ from the organization a public accountant works for and their customers? Make sure that you're able to identify what a certified public accountant is and how and who certifies them. All right, chapter 15. Make sure that you know the 3 reasons that the firms fail financially and what it means for each of those reasons to occur. So be able to identify examples of each of those reasons occurring. Risk, return, and trade-off. So when companies or venture capitalists are putting in risk, the higher the interest rate that is required, or in the case of VCs, the higher the return that they're expecting to get from their investment. Know what leverage is. Understand that raising needed funds through debt or through borrowing to increase the firm's rate of return. Be able to identify this on the exam and its definitions. In addition to this review, the bullet points listed below are also different subjects that you should make sure that you read up on before you start the exam. Again, once you start the exam, you must finish it. and you'll have a 3-hour period of time to complete the exam. Make sure you pick somewhere quiet with a good internet connection so you're not stressed out about the exam possibly dropping. We'll not be using the lockdown browser on this exam, but I ask that you use your your academic honesty and integrity to avoid using technology to assist you, to avoid using other individuals to assist you. Please complete this in one sitting alone and without assistance. You are absolutely welcome to use the any notes that you have that you've taken from the lectures, any printed PowerPoint slides or documentation that you've gotten from the class. If you have the textbook, you're welcome to use the textbook as a reference. I would suggest downloading it so you don't have another window open, which you might accidentally close the exam on. So that's all. I wish you guys very good luck. I hope you do very well on the exam. This is 100 points worth towards your the 550 total available points, of which you need 450 points to get an A, 400 for a B, and so on and so forth. All right. Thank you. Thank you guys for watching.